Hello, everybody. Welcome to a good football show. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined today by Denny Carter, who's happy to announce that he has traded for Juan Soto. Today, we'll be discussing the fallout from the situations in Miami and Cleveland, some recent receiver injuries in training camp, and Denny's recent, I'm using a lot of recent word, recent, it's a very important word.
It is.
Denny's recent article on quote-unquote robust running back builds in your hashtag fantasy football drafts. We will then welcome in Mr. Lawrence Jackson for a discussion on players we are still keen to gather more information on this summer. Denny, we had initially planned to talk about vacation and whether it was good or not because you're on vacation, and I just kind of assumed that you would say vacation is bad. It seems like you think vacation is good, but you just weigh in on that really quickly.
Vacation is completely different when you have the children. You know, it is no longer really a traditional vacation. You know, when you are charged with, taking care
the lives
of the little ones, making sure that the ocean doesn't gobble them up, things of that nature. So it is different. I do a lot less reading on the beach than I used to. Generally, I like a vacation, especially because I work from home, as do you. Because it gets me out of the routine. It gets me out of the funk of being home all the time. And it's nice. It's nice to be on the beach, honestly. So I would say I have no inflammatory take. I'm going to say it's somewhat good, also somewhat bad.
Producer Adam points out when you have kids, it's a trip, not a vacation.
It's a trip. Yeah.
It's a trip, and not the good kind of trip.
I will I will say that the kids waking up at 4 a.m. on the first day here was not something I planned.
That was a bad trip, Denny.
Good God.
When the kids woke up at 4 a.m. Yeah, and by the way, reading on the beach, you want to talk about an overrated activity? I feel like no one really does. People like read at the pool, but at the beach, the sun is melting you, sand is blowing in your face. It
is unbearable. I will say that I'm drenched in sweat.
Pouring sweat on your book.
My legs are burning up. Like I cannot like get out of the sun enough. I even wear the, Pat, I told you this yesterday. I wear the dad bod sun shirt, like the long sleeve shirt on the beach, because my days of slathering up the old bod with sunscreen, they're over. Like I'm done with that. So I'm just putting on the shirt. Even that doesn't save me from the sun.
Yeah, I slather up in sunscreen and become like so white that I look like I'm like a bobsledder in like a skin tight suit or something for a country that happens to have like white and this flag. Like if Canadian bobsledders are wearing like skin tight white suits, that's kind of how I look after I slather on the sunscreen at the beach.
Yeah. No amount of sunscreen.
SPF 1.5 million.
Right. I put stuff on my son's face the other day where his entire like nose and under his eyes were just as white, as white as a sheet, like unbelievably. And it was that way all day. He just walked around like that all day.
I have the kind of dangerous thing, but where I don't burn very easily. So I kind of like play Russian roulette with sunscreen. Yeah, I don't burn very easily. So I play.
You're the only Missourian who doesn't burn easily.
And you couldn't tell from my translucent face on this podcast, but I do not burn very easily when I'm out in the sun. So we were going to talk about vacation, and then we did just talk about it anyway. Yep. But then the Dolphins owner Stephen Ross went and got himself suspended after investigators found tampering violations of unprecedented scope and severity. But then Stephen Ross flew a mission accomplished banner when the league could not prove that he fixed games. So kind of a mixed day for the old boss. Is there even anything to say about this situation? It's very Dolphins, I feel like, to like openly, like egregiously tamper with not just one, but two people and then not get either of them still. Like the Patriots would tamper and would get everyone like in the building still. The Dolphins, like they tamper for 3 years and then they don't even get either of them in the building.
Can you remind folks of what the general outline of the allegations are?
No, they got on a boat with Tom Brady or something, and then they called like Sean Payton's agent or something, and were trying to get Tom Brady like interested in like an ownership stake in the team. But while he was under contract with the Patriots, then they also tampered with him when he was on the Bucks. They tampered with Sean Payton before he officially retired. Like they were trying to like form like a tampering super team. And there's like everyone very easily found out. And now they've been fined and suspended. They lost their first round pick in 2023.
Yeah.
I believe a 4th round pick in 2024. Stephen Ross is like heir apparent guy or some nonsense, has been suspended for a while. Like Stephen Ross, I can't go to a Dolphins game till like October or something.
Yeah, 2 months. It's a 2-month suspension. It's a slap on the wrist. I will say that Money and Lawyers are undefeated. Still, they've never lost.
They are, which we sadly learned in a much less funny way on Monday, where Deshaun Watson's suspension, only 6 games. I mean, talk about egregiously light, just does not fit the I mean, it's so hard to even like verbalize, but 6 games doesn't match what was alleged in the Deshaun Watson case. We don't quite know if the NFL, set up like PR, like bowling pins. They hope to knock down, or they claim they were hoping for an indefinite suspension. Now the independent judge came back with only 6. Like, it just doesn't feel, I mean, is anyone happy about, or even Browns fans happy about this? And just like not a good situation at all. It's kind of like a dark moment for the NFL, to be frank. And
it is
really hard to even like verbalize how I feel about it.
Well, I think you hit on something when you use the word egregious. I see the 6 games as an egregious miscarriage of justice, and probably very a heartbreaking thing for millions of fans, especially I'm sure women NFL fans who see this and ask where is the punishment? Where is it? It was not delivered. The judge, Sue Robinson, issued this very troublesome, problematic statement about what Watson may or may not have done. Man, it is really the worst of all worlds, I think, for the league. And you asked if Browns fans are happy. I have talked with some Browns fans online who say that they will no longer root for the team, and I can't blame them for that. I've also met some Browns fans who told me yesterday to cry more. So I do think that it is kind of split between people who take these things seriously and people who don't.
Well, we know how American sports fandom works. I mean, there's some things, some fans, like the team or the players, could do literally anything, and they would never stop rooting for them. And of course, there will be a big segment of the Browns fan base, but I think the Browns severely underestimated the amount of people this was like turn off forever. And, like a team that was always kind of like one of the most lovable, like easy rooting interests in the NFL, like that's just like shattered forever.
Right.
And just going back to like the judge's decision, she seemed like very hung up on like precedent, like the very light precedent, like the Robert Kraft case, which we know was very different in this case. And it's like, well, if you thought the precedent was too light for me, maybe establish a new precedent. Precedence doesn't mean you stick with that precedent forever. And it's like a very bizarre. I for a while I believed the NFL was not going to botch this. And I mean, like, their PR leaks are to be believed. They didn't want to botch it. They wanted a much longer suspension, but it could not have been botched worse, basically. And now it's just like a dark cloud hanging over the 2022 season.
Right. It is. The Browns have made themselves the villains forever. I mean, for as long as this lasts. And the league has let down people who were, hoping for it. Now I understand the commissioner can take action here. Is that correct? I mean, he can.
I actually am unclear on all that. And like sometimes we place like too much, like we put like too much responsibility in like American corporations. We have like outsized, like, well, they're letting, like, this was just a very easy situation for the NFL though. Well, like, sometimes like I feel like it's absurd. Sometimes like, oh, the Disney Corporation like let us down. This was like an easy situation where the NFL could have done a lot more, and they really did just let us down. They let down millions and millions of fans. Like, this was a situation where like it actually does apply. There was more they could have done. They didn't do it. Almost no one's happy about it. And I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, no, and it is, it is our jobs to analyze what this means for fantasy purposes, statistically, and for the team and everything else. So, as difficult as that is in a moment like this, I know we will do that, but it doesn't negate the fact that this is just a devastating, I think, conclusion to a really terrible saga for the NFL and its fans.
So yeah, a lot of stuff going on off the field with the NFL. Kind of like a surprisingly quiet start to training camp on the field. There's always a lot of injuries in training camp. There have, thankfully, quite mercifully, have not been any big injuries so far. Van Jefferson has undergone knee surgery. He's questionable for week 1. James Washington, who a lot of our underdog sicko friends were trying to turn into a thing. I'm sure like Kyle, Pat Crane probably have like very long text threads about James Washington, how devastated they are, how many builds have been ruined by James Washington.
Washington was a boomer pick, I understand.
Oh, was he really? All right. Well, that's actually kind of a relief.
Yeah, no, it was Jalen Tolbert was the Zoomer pick.
Well, Tolbert has been what's the generation younger than Zoomers? I feel like that's what a Jalen Tolbert
is there one?
There's got. I mean,
is there anyone?
Doesn't there have to be one? Like my kids were born starting in 2016. They're not Zoomers, right?
I don't know if they've been named.
Whatever. They're the Hellscapers, that generation, and they're really in on Jalen Tolbert even more than the Zoomers. So I think it's more of an even younger than Zoomers is the kind of pick that Jalen Tolbert is.
Yeah, right. So 18-year-old drafters are loving Tolbert.
No, not 18. I mean, they're really into Michael Gallup. We're talking like 7, 8-year-olds who aren't even legally, like allowed to draft an underdog. I'm assuming. My daughter, many Jalen Tolbert builds.
I was trying to get right up to the legal age of actually playing these games. So
yeah, Denny, do either of these move the needle? I mean, these are kind of. So Van Jefferson being hurt, does this make us more confident in Allen Robinson? Does James Washington being hurt? I guess it does. Inarguable, it makes Jalen Tolbert more appealing. What is your take on these two injuries?
Well, for the Van Jefferson injury, Jefferson is strictly a downfield guy. They're going to have like a 3-way, maybe wide receiver committee for wide receiver 3 in LA. We'll see how that goes. Ben Skwarnak or whoever he was.
Skwarnak.
Yes.
Who really likes to fumble, really likes to create interceptions. He's a hell of a guy.
He's a heck of a blocker, I understand, but not so much a receiver. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think that the target target share is going to be very condensed between Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson. I don't think the Jefferson thing moves the needle all that much. Robinson was not going to be like a major deep threat anyway. Like that, I think his days are gone. Now, as much as I like Allen Robinson, I don't think he's returning to the Blake Bortles days of 2017 or whatever it was, downfield stuff. But the Dallas situation, I think is a little bit concerning for CeeDee Lamb, and hear me out, because I know that, everybody's going down. Washington's going down. This guy's going. Gallup's not going to be back, so it's got to be good for CeeDee Lamb. It's got to be 20 targets a game for CeeDee Lamb. That's not always the way it works out. Also,
ask TJ Hawkinson how that went in Detroit.
Right. Also, I have to say that I looked at some splits yesterday on vacation, and CeeDee Lamb without Amari Cooper on the field hasn't been great. And I don't know if CeeDee Lamb is the kind of purely dominant receiver who can be the focal point of a defense and still produce consistently. I don't know if he's that guy. So the more people go down in the Cowboys receiving room, I don't think that makes things necessarily better. I think CeeDee Lamb needs somebody on the other side drawing some attention so that teams can't try to lock him down.
Denny, you mentioned blocking, by the way, in there, how you thought Ben Skwarnak was a hell of a blocker, I believe you said. We got some really good news.
That's what they say. That's what they say, the beat writers.
We got some really, really, really good news on Monday's podcast where James Palmer, who did an amazing job breaking down the Broncos and Chiefs for us in our AFC West preview, He said that Noah Fant was not known as a willing blocker for the Broncos, and that could foretell greatness in his tight end future. Because as we know, we do not like tight ends who block. And he also talked about, so James Palmer said he thought Tim Patrick might be ahead of Jerry Jeudy in Russell Wilson's pecking order.
Yeah.
Kind of shocking. While we were podcasting, it has been tweeted by Robert Mays, The Athletic, a friend of the show, guest of the show, that Tim Patrick got carted off the field at Broncos camp today after twisting his leg. We don't know the severity of that, so we can't really say a ton about that. But that would probably be a needle mover, I guess, in terms of receiver injuries, because James Palmer was talking about like Russell Wilson's like really dialed into Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick, basically his big outside receivers, and that he was frankly concerned for like Jerry Jeudy's like target share. So if Tim Patrick gets hurt, that might not seem like a big deal in fantasy because a lot of people were not dialed in on Tim Patrick, but James Palmer is very, very plugged into the Broncos. Like he thinks Russ is like in love with Tim Patrick.
For much of the 2021 season, Tim Patrick had a higher target per route rate.
The stat
Jerry Jeudy did.
Was that English? Sorry, Denny. I'm sorry to make fun, but like, what was that a real stat? What did you say? I mean, what are these
targets per route run? Target per route run.
So you were saying a real stat. Boo.
Yes, it is. It is a real stat. And for much of the season, Jeudy was trailing Patrick in commanding targets from Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock, your guy. Come on, man. I also, I struggle to find like where Jerry Jeudy fits in that passing attack. KJ Hamler is a world-class burner, okay, and fits perfectly with the beautiful rainbow ball that Russell Wilson excels at, right? And Cortland Sutton fits the DK Metcalf mold of a big boundary receiver who can go and get it. Russell Wilson likes that. We know that. Jerry Jeudy, that sort of middle of the field operator, intermediate stuff, Russell Wilson doesn't do that. He does, whether it's because he's short or whatever, he doesn't do that. So I don't really know where Jerry Jeudy fits.
Well, Jeudy was known coming in NFL as someone who could make plays out of the slot and down the field. So hopefully that gets unlocked. We know he's just had hellaciously bad quarterback play his first 2 years in the league, but Broncos receiver core, really, really something to pay attention to in camp. And hopefully Tim Patrick is not severely injured. And just, again, check out our Monday show if you didn't hear it. Really, really good stuff from James Palmer to Sean Reed and Daniel Popper. We got really into the weeds on the AFC West. And Denny, you're known for getting really into the weeds on zero RB, where you never draft a running back, you never log off. But you finally, both sides saw the other side of the coin trying to bring the country together. You wrote an article on robust RB. Take people through kind of just what that is and kind of what the crux of the article was.
Yeah. So, like I said at the beginning of the article, I know zero RB is very uncomfortable for a lot of people because it feels like you're building a safer team when you are drafting running backs early. Like that, it always feels better when you're done with your draft and you can say, hey, I have workhorse 1 and workhorse 2. And boom, and the rest is good, right? I feel good about that. Unfortunately, what you've done is you've drafted what's called a hyper fragile team, a team that does not get better with chaos. The chaos of the NFL season, it actually gets worse. It usually gets worse, I should say. Zero RB is the opposite. Zero RB usually benefits from the chaos of the NFL season. So that's the two kind of philosophical differences. If you are dead set, if you're adamant about robust RB, you go ahead and you draft your 3 running backs off the top, okay? And I'm not going to come to your house and throw a tomato at you, most likely. But I profile receivers in the fourth, perhaps a squash, and not a ripe squash, I should say. So I profiled receivers in rounds 4 to 7, and then in rounds 8 to 11, who you might want to target if you're looking to build, a higher scoring, more reliable sort of robust RB team. Some of these are fairly obvious. Like if DJ Moore drops into the 4th round in a 12-team league, that's fantastic for a robust RB team. There are receivers who can make it work. I tried to pinpoint those guys. I don't know if you want to go through some of them. I know I just mentioned.
Yeah, go through some. Go through maybe your one or two favorite targets, receiver targets, if you're going robust RB.
Right. So DJ Moore has dominated in every peripheral statistic, no matter who's throwing him the ball. And he's had some horrible quarterbacking, as you know, not only Sam Darnold, Cam Newton last year, because of his arm issues and everything, tremendously bad in every facet, both accuracy, downfield, everything, right? And DJ Moore still put up somewhat decent numbers, especially the peripheral stuff we like to look at. So Moore is critical. Another Moore, Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore was
love our Moores, don't we, folks?
We just the key to robust RB is you just draft a bunch of Moores. Zachary Kruger, our colleague here at NBC Sports Edge, laid out a very convincing argument for Elijah Moore in a recent piece that you can find on our site. He was highly efficient. And everywhere Elijah Moore has gone, both in college and then last year, I haven't looked at his high school stats. He has commanded targets, dominated targets, and that's a key here. Also, in that same range, you have Javonte Smith. Now, Javonte Smith, very disappointing last year. I'm pretty sure that's because the Eagles did the right thing and they went ultra run heavy. Now, if you think that AJ Brown coming to Philadelphia foretells of a more balanced offense, then Javonte Smith is in a great spot to, I think, outperform his ADP.
So yeah, you list a bunch of target. So if you go 2 or 3 running backs early, you listed a bunch of good receiver targets in rounds 4 to 7, rounds 8 to 11, some later round options like Isaiah McKenzie, who we know is blowing up the Zoomer Twitter internet right now. Randall Cobb, which I'm not going to read that part.
I mean, yeah, I know.
Kendrick Bourne, Julio Jones, David Bell, Josh Palmer, who we're all kind of interested in. Daniel Popper of The Athletic, Chargers beat writer, talked up Josh Palmer on Monday's show. Thinks he's pretty well positioned to be the number 3 receiver for the Chargers. He's someone whose ADP will probably rise pretty steadily in August. So who knows how cheap Josh Palmer will actually end up.
The thing with Palmer is he's a weirdly like a wide receiver handcuff. Or I should say insurance, wide receiver insurance. But I don't mean that he's useless for fantasy outside of an injury to Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. But in the case of him becoming the wide receiver 2 in that offense, he becomes an absolute locked-in starter in 12-team formats. Whereas, you can't say that for many receivers that you pick way late in the draft. I do think that McKenzie is like, in PPR at least, if you're going robust RB, McKenzie pops out as like the easiest draft pick ever. Like he's someone who could very easily emerge as a PPR scam, as you say, in a Bills offense that throws a lot, and a Bills offense that made Cole Beasley a legit PPR force. Okay, Cole Beasley, and McKenzie has done nothing but perform when he's been given the opportunity.
So yeah, just check it out. It's a very, very interesting article. So yeah, Denny, he sees both sides of the aisle. So
yeah, look, I experiment. I equal time. I'm actually required by federal law to give equal time to both robust and zero RB.
It's the running back fairness doctrine is back, and we will be right back after this with Mr. Lawrence Jackson. The Fantasy Football Expo presented by NBC Sports is coming to Canton, Ohio, August 12th to 14th. Join some of the top experts in the country, including our very own Patrick Daugherty. I've heard of him. Patrick Corain, Denny Carter, Lawrence Jackson, Kyle Dvorchak at the only true Fantasy Football Expo in the country. Zach Kruger is going to be there as well, too. We got a lot. I think Eric Froton is going to be there. All your favorite NBC writers. Tickets are available at thefantasyfootballexpo.com. Use promo code NBCPass at checkout to save $20. It is now our pleasure, as always, to welcome in Mr. Lawrence Jackson at Lord Don't Lose on Twitter, one of the very best handles out there. Today we're going to be talking, so it's the early days of camp. Lawrence, we were talking before you got here. Thankfully, there hasn't been like a ton of like huge injuries so far. It sounds like Tim Patrick might be done for you. That'd be the first kind of It's really, really tough injury.
Slowly but surely, they coming on.
They do come on, unfortunately. So Tim Patrick's one we'll be monitoring the rest of the week at NBC Sports Edge, powered by Roto-World. But we're going to talk about some players. We kind of want some more information on this summer. You know, guys who, like the ADP just won't really settle till we get a few more camp reports. We see some preseason reps. So we're just going to go through some of those guys today. Lawrence, who is the first player or situation you really think we need to see more information on this summer?
Yeah, so I'm going to just start it off with Javonte Williams. You know, last year he and Melvin Gordon had pretty much a 50-50 time share that worked well for their football team. But, you know, a lot of people, like most people do, they want to see the young running back, you know, take the reins and become a top 3 to 5 running back off the rip. Now, there's no doubt that Javonte Williams got that type of talent to be a top 3 to 5 running back in fantasy football. But he doesn't have the workload, and it doesn't seem like he's going to have that going into the season. A lot of folks are holding out hope that, you know, the coaches just simply dial down on Melvin Gordon when the coach is saying anything but that, you know. And now that they got Russell Wilson, from a regular football standpoint, it make all the sense in the world to run with both of them because Melvin Gordon was effective last year. So this is mainly saying, like, if you're going to view him as that, if you're going to view Javonte Williams as that type of running back, I only see that happening through unfortunate injury of Melvin Gordon. And me, I'm a big Melvin Gordon guy. I'm a guy that's taking Melvin Gordon at his ADP rather than Javonte Williams. Doesn't mean I'm all the way out on Javonte Williams, but, you know, when I'm feeling like the best you're going to do is run for 1,000 yards and so is your running mate, then, you know, I might look elsewhere somewhere in the second round.
We got some information on this Monday from NFL. We got some information on this Monday from NFL Network's James Palmer on our show, who did say he expects it to be maybe more of a 1A type situation for Javonte Williams this year, where it may not be like a 50-50 like it was last year, but he did say it was uncertain near the goal line, where, you know, Melvin Gordon's always been very good. And Melvin Gordon is Lawrence, I mean, it's just a good player. Like, it's something we like always lose sight of in fantasy because we wanted Javonte to be a thing so bad that Melvin Gordon is also just good. But James Palmer said his initial impression, even though, like Lawrence, like you said, the coaches aren't saying this, his initial impression was that it does look like more of a 1A, 1B type situation this year instead of like a true 50-50 split. So it is, but just highlighting really the theme of the show, that we just need more information. And we got to see like more weeks of how they dole out the reps, if they tip their cards at all in the preseason. And yeah, it's August 2nd as we record this. Hopefully August 28th, we have just a lot more data points on the situation.
I do think that getting the Denver backfield right, however it shakes out, is going to be hugely advantageous for fantasy managers. Like, if you take Javonte Williams in the second round, and if Gordon gets phased out or it gets injured or something, you have potentially the RB1 overall on your hands, and you drafted him as the RB, 8, 9, something like that, maybe 10. Plus a bunch of other, probably receivers that you were able to get early and then right after Javonte Williams. So that could blow. Now, opposite, if Javonte Williams suffers an injury or if Melvin Gordon emerges as the main pass catching back, he's a great pass catcher, very efficient pass catcher over the years. In an offense, I think that will have a lot of running back screens and a lot of deep shots. I think that we'll see both of those, not so much the intermediate stuff. I think, that would be huge for people who draft Gordon in the 9th round or 10th round or wherever you can get him in a 12-team league. So figuring that out, and I don't have any cheat codes. I don't have any, advice at the moment. I know I should, but man, I want to know about the Broncos backfield, because I really think that you have a huge leg up on your league if you get it right.
Lawrence, what is another situation where we need more reps, we need more information, we need more scoops? Give us more information, media.
Yeah, now we're just gonna move on to Trey Lance because he's probably the most polarizing quarterback from a fantasy perspective we have coming into this season, mainly because most people feel like the range of expectations is so wide here. Now, I was thinking about something the other day. You got Trey Lance and you got Justin Fields, right? We saw how Justin Fields did last year in his particular situation, and this year it ain't much better, right?
You could probably say it's demonstrably worse.
Yeah. So I mean, good luck to that young man. Trey Lance is like if these guys were switched, we'd be talking about the other guy how we talk about the other guy. Like, there's the reason why Trey Lance is so polarizing is because of what he has around him. And it's such a mystery. Now, what's coming out of practice, it's a little bit of good, it's a little bit of bad. Most of the good, you getting that from 49ers fans and folks who cover the 49ers. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's hard to, take that and run with it because you don't know how objective it is. So
yeah,
when you see that he go 5 for 11 in the practice, that's whatever. It's practice. And practice, the beginning of training camp, you trying to see what you could do. But the reason there's hope because he does have natural athletic ability. He's got skills. And then, I mean, look who he got. He got Debo, George Kittle. He got Trent Williams on the line. Elijah Mitchell. Let's not even talk about the defense on the other side, which could be contributing to his bad days in practice. So it's just a lot of factors you got to look at. Like, he's going against one of the best defenses in the league every day. So it will prepare him, but we just got to see more. We got to see him get into games, run out there with the first team offense, and then go from there.
I mean, you're definitely right, Lawrence, in that if you see he's 5 for 11 at practice, that's just fluff. Like you don't really need to.
I'm never drafting him.
You don't really need to focus on that too much as a fantasy drafter. You're not drafting Trey Lance because you think that he's going to be a top 5 in passing yards this year. Okay, like he's going to be near the bottom of the league in passing yards probably. You're drafting him because he's an incredible athlete who rushed. In his 2 starts last year, he rushed 24 times. I believe more than half of those were, if I remember correctly, more than half were design runs. So the team knows, I think, how to deploy him. And we know how valuable a rushing quarterback is. As much as we've talked about rushing quarterbacks over the years and how they are, like Rich Rebar says, a cheat code, the Konami code of fantasy football. I still don't think we emphasize rushing quarterbacks enough because
it actually is crazy. We really don't.
It breaks the game. It
actually does to straight up break the game.
I mean, it's part of the reason we considering still drafting Justin Fields right now because we know what he could do. We know what his situation is, but that rushing upside is what gives us like, he could still get those 10 points right here.
Yeah, I mean, just anecdotally, like. A rushing quarterback can go into the second half of a game with negative fantasy points and come out as a top 5 quarterback for the week because of the rushing. A passing quarterback, traditional passing, that's not happening with that kind of quarterback. So that's why Lance is so appealing. I will say that they have to. I'm going to lose my mind if Jimmy Garoppolo is on the roster in week 1 because.
He won't. I mean, okay, so Matt Mayoko said, like, no chance he'll be the starter at this point. I mean, even Kyle Shanahan, who we know, I would say lies a lot. I don't want to get sued for libel by Kyle Shanahan, but who massages the football truth.
I'm not entirely sold. I'm
sold. I'm not worried about Jimmy Garoppolo, but man, you guys talking about Justin Fields, but I just don't think we're probably not giving Justin Fields. Not paying nearly enough attention to like what kind of like an X factor he could be. Because like it's like the classic like do this one weird trick and this quarterback is much more valuable. Like just let him run a little bit. Like because last year all of his runs were scrambles. None of them were designed runs. the horrible coaching staff that was conspiring against him is gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they just do this one weird trick, he could be like a top 10 fantasy quarterback.
I have to write. Go ahead, Lawrence.
I mean, just real quick about Justin Fields, and it's not like he doesn't have arm talent. Coming into the draft, he was seen as the much superior arm talent when you talk about him and Trey Lance. But like, get him a line, man. Get him another receiver or something. But we'll see.
I think Fields can be and was certainly in college an elite passer. I think that is in his range of outcomes for fantasy purposes. You want to see a coaching staff that's not undermining him at every turn. I think he has that now also. And I think I have to write on this because I was looking at splits between when the Bears finally started to use play action a little bit, started to use motion, pre-snap motion with Justin Fields, and his splits are tremendous, huge, miles apart from when they basically just gave up offensively to when they were actually trying to do something with Justin Fields under center. And he succeeded in those circumstances. I think they can put him in a positive situation. And like Pat said, if that pans out, we're underdrafting him.
We'll be right back after this. Prep for your draft with the latest player rankings, projections, and more in the NBC Sports Edge Fantasy Football Draft Guide. It's powered by RotoWorld, the premier source for player news and fantasy information. Take advantage of our preseason special and get the draft guide for $5 when you use promo code DRAFTGUIDE at checkout on NBCSportsEdge.com/draft guide. Lawrence, who do we need more information on? We got more folks that we need more information on.
But it's a guy who's seen to be moving in a positive direction, and it's Ramondre Stevenson. We just want to see a little bit more because, he's getting more reps. He seems to be, trying to take over that third down back row, that pass catch and roll. And now the interesting thing about him is he didn't catch a lot of passes last year, 14 catches. He was more of a rusher last year, actually. But the thing about Ramondre Stevenson, he didn't have a significant role until halfway through last season of his rookie season. Now, what makes that interesting is if he could somehow take some of them early down carries away from Damian Harris and start getting closer to splitting that, and he's the primary third down back, well, then you just got yourself a nice little flex player in the 10th round there. And I would say, based on the reports that we done heard so far, I would say he more valuable at his ADP, which is around round 9, 10, more so than Damian Harris. James White, he on the sideline right now. He getting a little older there. Not that mean anything with Bill Belichick. He loved old players like that. And James White, just a Patriots guy, you know what I'm saying? But if this keep up, man, he could definitely build on the 600 rushing yards that he had as a rookie. Now he adds the passing production to that, and then you might have your little something there.
Well, yeah, NBC's Peter King reported on he thinks that he was kind of sharing his opinion. He wasn't sharing it as like a sourced report, but like he came away from some time in Patriots camp thinking Ramondre Stevenson is going to become the starter, basically. So like another guy shaping up is just like a massive X factor. And we know that that's a place where you tread lightly with Patriots running back. I mean, that's not just like a cliche. That's like a hard-earned truth. Like you just have to tread lightly.
We've known it for years, decades.
Yeah, especially with Josh McDaniels gone now. I mean, we're really kind of like in uncharted territory. Well, Bill Belichick and like his random like viceroys are gonna do with the running back. I mean, like we don't know who's calling plays. It's just kind of. But Ramondre Stevenson. So the Patriots never really feature rookie running backs, and yet they featured Ramondre Stevenson last year. They clearly really, really like him. Shaping up is just like a massive X factor in fantasy drafts.
First of all, congratulations on working in the word viceroy into the podcast.
Thank you, Remy.
That's huge. It's a first, I think. And
it's probably not, unfortunately for me. I've probably said it before. I don't know why.
You're right. I actually do remember you saying that sometime during the winter. Stevenson is good. like maybe extremely good. In his final season in college in 2020 at Oklahoma, not Oklahoma State, he averaged 8.2 yards per touch. Okay, and that included 18 receptions for 211 yards. That's 11.8 yards per catch. Like, he's a big play, explosive guy who strikes me as, potentially one of the most important players, at least one of the most important late round running backs in fantasy this year. I'm trying to get him everywhere I can. I'll even pay a little bit of a tax on Stevenson to make sure that I get him on my roster. Like, I see him as that sort of player in that sort of position behind a good offensive line. A team that will probably run more than most, although probably not as quite as last season. But yeah, Stevenson is critically important. And if he gets a full workload or anything close to it, he could blow the roof off compared to where you're drafting him.
Denny, I couldn't help but notice it sounds like in the background you've received several White Claw deliveries. On your beach vacation.
There's a door. So I'm recording. I should have said this at the top of the show. I'm recording from the Beach House studio here, NBC Beach House studio. And
you gave the shipped person the code to get into the condo, and they just keep dropping case after case of White Claw.
They flew me in on a helicopter. It was nice. And I'm staying here with 3 families though, and there's a door nearby, and the kids in this house, they love to come in and out of that door.
Well, did you know a quick child fact for you out there who don't have kids is that they don't close doors. They only slam them. There's no in between. They either literally don't close the door or slam it. They don't know how to normally close the door.
They don't flush the toilet either.
No. What is with that? Did I do that as a kid? I gotta ask my parents. Did I never flush? Because my kids have yet. My son's 9 years old. Never flushed.
The door to my garage has quite literally never once been closed. So the inside temperature is always the exact same as it is outside, and it's a problem. It's a problem. Lawrence, what's another situation where we want more information?
Before I get to that real quick, we said all that we said about Ramondre Stevenson just for week 1 to show up in Pierre Strong lineup as the third down running back because it's the Patriots. But anyway.
Yeah. Pierre Strong.
Summerlin.
You're right.
Raymond Summerlin was on me to get Pierre Strong more involved in our rankings. So we'll see. Waiting for hell.
Pierre Strong, listen, they love Pierre Strong's blocking. And I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but Bill Belichick, and Ramondre Stevenson figured this out last year.
Well, I mean, we know offensive coordinator Matt Patricia, famous philosophy. We know he loves blocking running backs.
The Patriots value a good pass blocking running back, and that's what Pierre Strong is. He could get playing time just because of that.
At every stop where Matt Patricia has called plays, which is to stop after stop after stop. So much emphasis on running back.
A guru.
Yeah. So Lawrence, what's another situation?
If there's any backfield I need to see more out of before I even think about taking them in redraft going forward is the Seattle Seahawks backfield. Now, Chris Carson retired because of the neck injury. So you figure hey, man, we got a little more clarity on this situation between Ken Walker, Rashad Penny. Then they go talking about how Travis Homer and DJ Dallas is battling for the pass catching role in this backfield. So you got Rashad Penny and Kenneth Walker. Now, I'm sure we all expect when week 1 get here, that first running back lining up going to be Rashad Penny, right? What I don't feel like we'll know is who's that third down back. And I feel like being like the Seattle Seahawks that they are with Pete Carroll, the fact that both of those dudes is mentioned, both of them could get playing time. And that's from a fantasy perspective, man, that's just scary. We saw them both last year. Both, did some good things at certain points for the team. But as this training camp goes on, I want to know which guy is it who gets that third down role so we could, kind of forget about the other guy and then focus on him. And now we can turn our attention to Rashad Penny and Kenneth Walker, or Kenny, whatever you want to call him. What's going to be the divvy up between that? It's just a whole lot going on in that backfield that we have to see more out of before you can feel extremely confident making any pick when it comes to them.
Yeah, and Denny, before you weigh in on the Seahawks backfield, we had the Athletics' Michael Sean Dugar on the show last week, and he was basically like, yeah, it's probably going to be more than a two-man committee. So, I mean, Denny, are you in on this backfield and zero RB at all? Are both the two early down guys just too expensive and not enough clarity in the third down situation? What's your Seahawks backfield take?
It's tough because Rashad Penny was the best back in the league for a month last year. I mean, by every metric possible. And you have Ken Walker, who is, by all accounts, a stellar prospect coming into the league. And, so I feel like I am going to kind of nibble at the Seattle backfield a little bit in drafts. I do think that the more beat writers talk about a three-headed backfield, the more Pennies and Walker's ADPs will fall. I think maybe to the point where you feel pretty good picking up one of them, and just kind of hoping against hope. But really, in any backfield, we want high value touches, which is inside the 10, and pass catching. That's what we want. If you take that away, if you give that to one guy, Travis Homer in this case, then you don't have much to spread around as far as those valuable touches go. It makes the whole backfield very difficult to parse, and I would say that they with that three, there's the White Claw again, with the three down. I'm sorry, with the Travis Homer situation, it makes them. I think it makes the Seattle backfield a lot less appealing from a zero RB standpoint. I think you can kind of transition away from them a little bit.
Was it even Travis Homer? But I mean, there's also like DJ Dallas. Like, we don't even know which of like.
Both, yeah.
We don't even know who like the primary reserve.
I said him and Dallas.
We don't even know who like the primary reserve.
4-man committee.
Yeah. So like,
it ain't like we talking about the Chargers offense here. Like this is, Isaiah Spiller as the backup. Nah, this ain't some elite offense. We're talking about 4 dudes in probably a bottom tier offense.
And Denny, when you mentioned the high value touches too, like we don't really know who like the goal line back is going to be. It'll probably be like the more veteran player in Rashad Penny, but I don't know if this will be a situation where like the zero RB price ever gets quite right, and either like Penny or Walker's ADP will be depressed enough, and like the third down back and what a Geno Smith or Drew Lock offense is just like, what are we even really doing here?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think, well, I'm just going to stay away from bad offenses. What I mean is I'm going to target backfields where teams will have positive game script, or at least neutral game script on their side, and they'll be able to run the ball more in the second half. I don't know if the Seahawks will be in that position too much, but this is Pete Carroll, so they could be down by 4 scores in the fourth quarter and still run it on 2nd and 12.
I will say the Seahawks are usually fairly transparent, like not with Pete Carroll's words, but I think we'll get a pretty good feel from his actions on how the backfield will unfold during the summer. So hopefully by August 20th, August 25th or something, there'll be like an emerging consensus on how these guys will be deployed. You can't pay any attention to anything Pete Carroll says, but I think it is one team where we will be able to kind of read into like who's getting the reps, who's out there with the starters, blah, 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 blah. So hopefully we have a better feel by the time home league redraft season is in full swing.
Drew Lock is the goal line back.
He's a good athlete.
I will say if I had to choose, if you said, I'm going to throw you into the ocean if you don't pick a Seattle running back, and I'd say, why would you do that? Why?
Yeah.
I would say, okay, fine. I'm taking Ken Walker.
If you throw me in the ocean, I'm swimming.
Then drafting both. Still, because you throw in the ocean, you easily swim out and live. Well, that was kind of dumb. I don't really know why they did that. Now I'm just gonna go draft both backs.
Guys, I'm looking at the ocean right now. I'm going to say it's not easy. I'm just putting it out there.
The roiling surf of North Carolina.
That's right.
Denny can't swim. He's scared of the water.
Oh, that's why you have to pick Red.
No, he can swim.
I'm turning into Michael Phelps, baby. I'm not drafting none of them.
Denny, you can swim, right?
Woodfell's like, no.
Yeah, we all like have a big laugh at the fantasy football expert, like throwing you in some body of water. Like, yeah, we were joking a few weeks ago. Denny can't swim.
That's hilarious. Look at he's playing it up.
Yeah, he's just now he's taking a nap. Too real, too soon. Denny, you have any guys you want to talk about? Or
one I did want to say. Well, we have a viewer who wants us desperately to talk about Breece Hall. So I think we can do that. So Michael Carter suffered an ankle injury today in training camp. Could be big, depending on the severity of that ankle issue for Michael Carter, who has been one of my favorite draft targets. I'm not thrilled about all this, but Breece Hall would be, I think, set up for a nice 3-down role. I don't think that he would automatically get that 3-down role if Michael Carter is at full health. So an extended absence for Carter makes Breece Hall, man, I don't even. What do you guys think? A third rounder in 12-team leagues?
Yeah, probably. And like Michael Carter. Not that fantasy managers were that concerned about Michael Carter looming. Like, we've been treating Breece Hall as like a real deal RB2, like kind of creeping into like the higher end RB2. And I mean, it's like a classic situation where actions have spoken louder than words for a while, where the Jets coaching staff was not nearly as invested in Michael Carter last year as fantasy managers were. And then they went out and used a 2nd-round pick on a different running back, and where it was already looking like kind of a green light for Breece Hall. And yeah, if Michael Carter, I mean, this is the team that featured, Tevin Coleman last year and Ty Johnson sometimes over Michael Carter when given the opportunity. So Breece Hall might be to the point where it doesn't even really matter like what's happening behind him or around him. Right, Lawrence?
I think I read that it's a small ankle injury too.
Okay.
That's what I saw. I think it popped up while we was doing this podcast. But man, Breece Hall, that's a team RB1 right there. Like, that was their first pick in the 2nd round. Yeah.
Early 2nd round pick. The Jets had 3 first-round picks, so it's not like they used a first rounder on him. But
like they had the 3 first round picks, and then they immediately took it back in the 2nd round. The consensus overall running back coming into the draft, he gonna be the guy. And then when I think about it even further, it's like there always has to be a rookie that finishes as an RB1. As of today, he looked like he got the clearest path to that. But then again, we don't know, because then somebody like James Robinson gonna come out the woodwork and be that guy. But there's always one rookie running back that finishes as an RB1, most of the times too. But I would just based on the profile and what he's seen as in league circles, I can't imagine that that he not finna be the dude in that backfield. Like, I think that Michael Carter gonna be a nice little helper outer though. He gonna spell him pretty nice. He gonna give him that breather. He might even squirt the Gatorade bottle to him, But yeah, I mean, I don't think it ain't gonna be nothing like no Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams by no means.
And like Breece Hall is a somewhat uncertain pass catching pedigree, but he wasn't like a total zero. He caught 20 balls each of his final 2 seasons. So hopefully it's not like one of those situations where he like automatically gets yanked off the field on every critical 3rd down. But Breece Hall's he's sitting pretty basically as an RB.
Like, I don't think he's gonna do what Najee Harris did last year either, as far as touches go. So yeah, it's gonna be some Michael Carter up in there. But I eventually, I mean, and very soon, I would think that he gonna be the guy.
The Jets were one of the run heaviest teams in the league during their somewhat decent stretch late in the season that included a win against the Jaguars, one of the worst football games to ever be played. And I think that's the formula that we're looking at for the Jets this year is they want to hide Zach Wilson. They want to keep it on the ground, keep it close, give themselves a puncher's chance. Is that the phrase? I don't even know.
It is.
Yes.
So and that would be good. That would be good for Breece Hall. But wait a second, you guys are way too. I think Michael Carter is an excellent pass catcher who could ruin the 3-down role for Breece Hall, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would ever really envision him as a 3-down back right off the bat, but I don't think he'll be like enough of a nuisance, basically. And I don't think it'll be like an auto off the field for Breece Hall. And I just don't think the Jets like care about Michael Carter that much. Like, I don't think he's someone that like, we got to create a role for Michael Carter. Otherwise this offense is going to suck. Like, I think he's like just a guy to them.
I give you this. He did catch 9 passes in the game one time when Mike White started at quarterback. So there's that. Yeah. I don't know what that means, but it happened in life before.
This is not related to the backfield, but I'm not kidding when I say that I will be more bullish on Jets pass catchers if and when Joe Flacco is under center.
Ah, man. I think we need to end the show there. You were going to talk about someone else, but then you got lured into talking about Breece Hall.
I did. I'm being serious about that. Khalil Herbert. I just want to throw Khalil Herbert out there.
That's all the time we have for no, sorry.
We're talking about good players now. Herbert was incredibly productive as a college running back, one of the most productive backs in the nation in his final year in college. He has impressed as a starting running back briefly last year. He would be, according to beat writers, the 1A option in the Chicago backfield if anything happened to David Montgomery, to Pat Daugherty's chagrin, and DeMont Nation. But Herbert, I think, is a little bit under the radar for zero RB purposes. I want to throw his name out there so that in November when he gets one start, I can say I told you so.
It is good. It was another guy, Raymond Summerlin's like, we need Khalil Herbert higher in the rankings, and I did believe he was correct. And the viewer, by the way, points out, I said Breece Hall caught at least 20 balls each of his final 2 seasons. Actually, all 3 of his seasons, and it was over 30 as a junior. So he's far from a zero as a pass catcher. And yeah, Michael Carter is just it's not a thing.
That over 30 as a junior, that tells me 40 to 50 range as a rookie in the league.
Well, that would completely change the calculus.
40 to 50, he'd be like a top 6 or 7 running back. I don't know if that might be a bit bullish, Lawrence.
40 to 50. Hey, when you think about it, look, Antonio Gibson caught 42 passes. Yeah. Look, and so did J.D. McKissick. So it's.
I think if Breece Hall catches 30 passes, that means like Michael Carter like is 0% roster by like November 10th, basically. Like if he's on pace for a 30, even a 30 catch Breece Hall season would basically be like ruinous, I feel like, for Michael Carter.
Yeah, of course. Thankfully, you get Michael Carter in the 29th round. So
that's true. It is. I'm surprised you didn't go with a different 9th.
This is that's too ridiculous. This is the key to talking about backup running backs. You say it doesn't matter, but it might matter.
But we all know that it does matter. We also know that nothing matters and everything matters. And the show, just trying to ad lib a second.
Things got dark.
Show's over. Show's over is where I was going with that. Thank you very much for listening today. Thank you to Lawrence. Thank you to Denny. Thank you again to our guests on Monday. Please check out our ongoing preview series. We've got the NFC West. I don't think we have decided on the NFC or AFC West actually for next week. We got 2 more shows to go in our preview series. We have another show this Thursday with Matt Straub. Thank you so much for listening. Keep it locked to the site. Training camp news all week. For Lawrence, for Denny, I'm Patrick Daugherty. We'll catch you later.